The slide on the left shows the emblem of my university. It was founded in 1457. That's a long history of medicine. It goes back. And since it was conceived in Germany, to this day, there is no ABMS there. And they have excellence in care. I can validate that. On the right, you see the emblem of Kempen. It's a city in Holland at this point in time. The borders have shifted. And my family was one of the first 7 families to settle in Wisconsin. So I'm all American, but I trained in Europe by chance. And because of that, I'm aware of the facts that Americanism is a problem for us to deal with because it means corporate medicine. I did certify in '89 and again in 2005 because I was in academics. They said, you need to do this. I went, I took the test, I didn't study, I took it, I passed. It was interesting to see what it was then and to see what it's morphed into at this point too. Beyond mere board certification, it's no longer about being board certified. That is a bait and switch tactic to take board certification, which I will get into a little bit about the history, the background, to create a new product, a totally new, and it's called product by the people selling it, MOC. And MOC has nothing to do with board certification. It's just a new product to make you buy a subscription every year and pay your dues. And we will see that certification is widespread in this country. It's been used as a means to preclude international companies coming into the United States without paying their dues. On the right, you'll see the UL emblem there. You can't buy a telephone, a radio, or anything without the UL being on it. And it's a lot like the Food and Drug Administration. They approve everything, but they really don't look at anything. They have you send your data in, and they will rubber stamp it for a price so you can put it on the market and keep foreign products out. So the key thing about this board certification, and MOC in particular, is that it's a means to put you under the thumb and keep you in the community paying dues for the rest of your life. Now, the American Board of Medical Specialties, Higher Standards, Better Care, has never proven that board certification makes a difference, yet alone MOC, which is a brand new product. It's like they said with the ACA, we have to pass it to see what it is, and that's exactly what MOC is. All of these emblems up here, the 2 big ones, American Board of Medical Specialties and the Federation of State Medical Boards, if you don't know who the Federation is, those are the people that sold us the ECFMG, the FLEX, the USMLE. They started certifying people from abroad. Again, keep the competition out. Then they found that medical students could be forced into their programs. And in Ohio, the only state in the union, because of the inbreeding in Ohio and the medical boards, is the only state where you have to use their Federation Credential Verification Service in order to be licensed in Ohio. And that's amounted to a $600,000 a year industry for the Federation. They use state medical boards. They pay those members to come to their meetings to validate them as the voice of medical boards of the United States. It is a true conspiracy. Now, the only one up there that means anything at all is the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval, because unlike any of these other ones, they will give you your money back if you're not satisfied. The rest of it is just a stamp on a paper that you have to buy to be in the game. And it's big money. The boards alone are a $375 million a year industry in 2011, and MOC wasn't even rolling big time then. And you can see the various boards. Internal medicine and family medicine are the biggest ones. And it's important to recognize that the Internal Medicine Board, the ABIM, is the one pushing this. And they discovered the whole concept of recertification by imposing upon family medicine and emergency medicine. When they were conceived, they had to have 10-year limits on their certificates because they were the competition coming in to take jobs away from internal medicine docs. Then they discovered the money, and it's expanded from there. And if you look at the CEOs, these people are physicians. They're politicians with an MD license. And if you look at these are hundreds of thousands of dollars. In pediatrics, not $1 million to run the American Board of Pediatrics for 1 year. Dr. Stockman, that was a bad year. He's up to 1.3 million in the most recent years. To run a board that only makes $2 million a year, and I don't know if there are any pediatricians here, but I guarantee you they don't make anywhere near that much. So these people who run these corporations are making big money off of the backs of working physicians and are nothing more than politicians with an MD degree. Now, the reality of being a doctor is you have to keep up. And this is a colleague of mine from Ohio State. If you would read 2 articles per day out of the 6 million articles published annually, in 1 year you'd be 82 centuries behind. There's that much crap out there being published. And everything you read from the American Board of Medical Specialties is crap. I've been looking at the articles that come out every month, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of it. And it's retrospective chart review sort of things that are compared to other relatively selected groups to prove somehow that MOC or board certification matters, with a relative risk ratio of 1.1 or 1.2, which is equal to 1 in reality. Why do we need the ABMS to regulate medicine? This is from the state of Ohio, the medical board. This is their slide, except for the stuff I put at the bottom because I'm an anesthesiologist. We are paying for a DEA license, a state license. The Inspector General is looking at us. Medicare, Medicaid is looking at us. They're making us buy electronic systems so they can look at us and tell us, oh, you didn't check that box? We're not going to pay you. I mean, that's what the EMR is all about. But there's a whole slew of people out there looking over your shoulder every day. And in the hospital, I just got privileges in 2 hospitals. I had to have 2 police checks, an FBI check, just to get my privileges. Why in God's name do I need the American Board of Medical Specialists, who have never caused a physician to leave practice since their inception? They do not regulate anything except the inflow of money. Regulatory capture has already been explained. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump by. Regulatory capture, in short, is on the street called extortion. And regulatory capture is being promulgated into the residency programs, forcing doctors to participate in the ABMS certification scheme because they can do it. They have academics on their boards. They go through the all these certification industries, the ACCME, the ACGME, everything, the JCAOH, there's all of these certification industries. You would be surprised how deep into crane operators are certified, nurses are certified, accountants are certified, but nobody gets recertified, just doctors. Lawyers, they have to do CME, and if you made them recertify, you take a tax lawyer who has to do marital law, international law, all that other stuff. That's what I have to do as an anesthesiologist. I got to do cardiac, I got to do OB, I got to do all this stuff. They would sue, and that's what we need to do, and I will get to that. So what is it? It's, excuse me, Marlon Brando. He represents the Godfather. They're going to make us an offer we can't refuse. We're going to, in order to get your board certification, you must comply with MOC. And grandfathers believe themselves to be immune of this. They're not really immune, because next year, under the PQRS legislation, grandfathers, they will be board certified, but they will be penalized 1.5, and then in 2016, 2% of your gross income that you take in from CMS, be it Medicare or Medicaid, it will be cut right off the top. The joke on those who participate with MOC, and it's for MOC, it's not for board certification. Board certification has been reduced to a mere entry requirement to MOC, this unproven monster. And that's what the government is going to make you buy, whether you're grandfathered or not, or they're going to cut your incomes right off the top. Now, if you comply with MOC, instead of losing the 2%, you will be paying probably 5% to the ABMS in equivalent dollars to get the 2%, so you're going to lose 3% overall. And that's one of the main problems with this. The ABIM has known for a very long time, if you look here in 1970, endorsed the concept of recertification voluntary, and I'll come back to that. They offered recertification programs, but in 1986, the ABIM concluded voluntary recertification is a failure. It won't work. We need to force people to do this. And then in 1990, the means to do that was to limit certification that they sold to 10 years. Certification is a lifelong. Board certified is past tense. And I think it's time for everyone to recognize that license and legislation and pertaining to healthcare is at the state level. The Constitution only gives the federal government very defined things that the state does not do. And legislation and licensure is in the state. And that's why it's important to become active in your state societies to make these things happen. Besides the fact that the national organizations are in bed with the ABMS, are by and large academics selling the products of MOOC and making 2 to 3 times the amount of money that the ABMS is earning. So this is a very calculated thing. They knew the only way to make it fly was to have a switch over your head. How do they know voluntary recertification failed? They offered voluntary recertification back in 1974, and the numbers went down successively each year in people signing up to recertify. I recertified just on a whim. I'm listed as being MOOC compliant, although I know come hell or high water, I am not going to do any of this for the rest of my life, but they like to inflate their numbers. But the reality is people turned away. No one wanted this. Certification is merely branding. It's an advertisement. Up until 1975, it was unethical for physicians to advertise themselves or their practices in newspapers or on the radios. And in 1975, the Federal Trade Commission, had a lawsuit. It had to do with lawyers not being able to advertise as professionals, but then it spilled over into medicine when the AMA sued back on this basis, and in '83 it fell apart, and advertising is now legal. I opened up the St. Louis Dispatch, and I saw a full-page article in there of a naturopath, one of these chiropractors, stating neuropathy is a problem. 87% cure rate in 32 days with his laser therapy, and he's the only one in the state. Well, if it was that effective, more people would be doing it. So advertising is a big thing in medicine now. And as you see here, if you fly back and forth and look in the on-flight magazines, you will see medical advertisements in there, and I will get to that. But at any rate, certification was a way for doctors to lift themselves above the rest of everyone else as an advertising means going back over 80 years. And this is the first American Board of Internal Medicine examination, which was published just recently by Dr. Barron, the CEO of the ABMS. And it has a part 1, which is a little discussion, and a part 2, which is a more in-depth discussion of a particular case of an internist patient, basically about diabetes. And as the first one, we can see that certification, the test was very, very straightforward. Now, if you take the test, you get to get your palm print vein mapping done. You get strip search. You have to ask to go to the bathroom. It's kind of like being in jail. So the Godfather's not a bad person to bring on the screen, but at any rate, it has evolved, and the whole evolution of this certification is worth noting. Now, this is from your standard airline magazine, Top Doctors in America. Because it's in an airline magazine, it has to be an ad. And the funny thing about this, and I've been looking at them for 5 years, I've never seen an anesthesiologist on there. I mean, we're great guys, you know. One of us should be a top doctor, maybe me. But the reality is, for $15,000, you can get your name on the side, and for $30,000, it can be your picture. It's an advertisement campaign, and that's exactly what board certification is. I got this in the mail just 3 days ago. Please sign up as a diplomat. We'll put you in the book, so you can advertise to the Joint Commission, the National Committee for Quality Assurance, and for the people at large. People at large have no idea what board certification is. I used to get this when I was in college from Who's Who's. You know, put your name in there and your mom will buy the book. And that's exactly what this is. It's an advertising scheme. Now, I said the national societies also are in bed with this, selling the new MOOC programs. And this is from the American Academy of Neurology. Renew my membership. We're going to give you MOOC programs free of charge to help you out. Well, nothing's free of charge. There's always a cost. This is from just last month's JAMA. Now I'm going to go into the advertising in medical journals a little bit. Eric S. Humble, when he wrote this, was an executive at the ABIM. It's gotten published in JAMA. They went to the Mayo Clinic, where everyone has to be board certified to work there. They did sampling. They got about 50 guys, and they researched and they asked questions. How can maintenance of certification be made better? Not, is it any good? Should it be abolished? But how can it be made better? And the reality of it is, in asking the questions, they got these suggested changes on the right. And just to read through them real quick, it's just a hoop required for street credibility. None of them are positive statements. But the take-home message of the article is, we will improve milk and make it wonderful, although all the findings that they have are negative in every way. And that is the methodology of the ABMS, to do pseudo studies, to find a semblance of data, and they are welcomed with arms wide open from all national medical journals, and the JAMA journals in particular, because these journals, the editors, are part of the problem, also supplying milk, being leading physicians in educational programs whose basic existence is dependent upon this whole program. An inefficient use of time, poor organization, no support, often irrelevant, frustrating owing to lack of needed knowledge, etc. But the take-home message was to make it better. And this was from Medscape Medical News. They reviewed it and they stated in frank summary fashion, physicians in this focus group of very select physicians from the Mayo Clinic said that the milk process is unnecessarily complex, is of little benefit to physicians, patients, or society, and that's what they published online in the references there. Now the thing that you never see, you get the PDF, and that's the article, and most of us, because we're out in community practice, if we're lucky, we can get the excerpt off of PubMed and read that and say, well, this is what data shows. But when you open the actual article and read through it, then you find out, no, muck is not a good thing. We're trying to make it work. We probably never will. But this was a piece of paper that was an addendum published online and never part of the PDF, which a drug rep would hand to you. And it details the focus group sampling and procedures. A grounded theory study of physicians' perceptions using purposive sampling. Sampling with a purpose. You have to ask yourself what the purpose was. I think we all know. In an academic campus versus community sites, all under Mayo, where the people were already regulatory captured. And the whole background of this is when they publish these articles, this stuff never hits the street. It's in the background, in the text. People don't know about it. And I've started reading these articles, and it's mind-boggling to read it. There is no science in these papers by and large. A purposive sample is a non-representative subset of some larger population constructed to serve a very specific need or purpose. And that's from UC Davis, one of their books, one of the definitions I could pull down for that. Now the other facet is the practice improvement modules. The biggest problem I have with practice improvement modules is it takes physicians who really don't want to be there, they force their patients to become research subjects without informed consent, whereby the patient carries all the cost and all the risk and is never even told. And when you talk to legislators or people about what a practice improvement module is, go simple. I picked diabetes. Everyone understands diabetes. Hemoglobin A1C, you can explain to these people. And so he takes 60 people, the average hemoglobin A1C is 8.4. I want to get it down to at least 6.9. I'm going to improve the care. Start insulin on people, things like that. And when John Doe, one of my research subjects, goes off the highway at 65 miles an hour with a sugar significantly below that speed limit, 24, he won't show up in the study. And so we are violating the basic principles of the Nuremberg laws of 1947, which came into being after Hitler used his government to force doctors to do things doctors should never have been doing. So that's the biggest problem with practice improvement modules. Many of them, as this MOOC was being rolled out, they were not even defined. You were allowed to make your own practice improvement module, and based on whatever you decided, without any IRB oversight or anything. They see this as a problem, and so they've started to sell this to the major medical centers to get them on board to become sellers of this product. And for a mere fee of $1,000, you can apply as a major medical center, and for $5,000 a year, you can become a provider. Well, that's not going to be you and me. That's going to be, to date, the Mayo Clinic, the University of Michigan, and the Cleveland Clinic. And at the bottom, you see this is a brochure from the ABMS talking about the University of Michigan Health Center's practice improvement module license is basically what that is. And the reality of that is what they're doing is selling to the big centers the opportunity to make sure that their doctors participate in their programs so they can get the MOOC points. In Pediatrics a couple months ago, there was a paper there which just was mind-numbing, where they went out and they tried to recruit physicians to become research participants in a research study to reduce smoking in teens, a very noble cause. It was funded by the government, it was listed, it was registered, and then they didn't get enough people. So they turned around and they started offering MOC points to the physicians if they would participate, and they rapidly filled their rosters with patients and things like that. And they basically said, we can use MOC to make doctors do research for the institutions. It's become a modus operandi for academia to take every patient and make them a research subject under every doctor in the country. What is this portfolio approval program? Pathway for healthcare organizations to support physician involvement, code word for make them researchers. It began in 2009 with 3 centers, the American Board of Family Medicine, Internal Medicine, and the Board of Pediatrics, and the 3 medical centers now are all parts of it. Why can they participate? They can award their physicians at low cost. Otherwise, they've got to pay for this through some secondary means. So it's a monetary enticement. It's a bribe. It's a bribe. And what are we doing as research project? I love the last one, identifying overweight and obese patients in pediatric primary care clinics. How difficult can that be? You look at them, you see that they're obese, you do a BMI, and it becomes pretty straightforward. But we're going to make this into a practice improvement module. Now, last year in October, I took my medical journal, this is my specialty society, and all these editors, I went and I reviewed all the editors as to their MOC compliance. And if you look at the bottom, you can see people from Brussels, from New Zealand, from Germany. No foreign doctor has any ABMS certificates behind their name, none of them. And I can tell you, having lived in Germany, there is excellence in healthcare. They have better longevity, lower infant mortality, lower cost, and everyone has healthcare. As a medical student in Germany, for $23 a month, I had eyes, ears, drugs, full health care, because you're required, part of the socialistic system, to have it. Everyone truly has good health care in most of the European countries. But what I found in reviewing this is that only 2 individuals recertified as of January 1st, 2014. What that means, although it was October of 2013, 2 individuals were listed as recertified in January of 2014. Pretty interesting. We're awarding this in advance to very specific individuals. Only 1 primary recertification occurred after 2000 when MOC was clearly a plan. No lifelong grandpa recertified in 2000, and 2 of these grandpas never recertified even to that date. 11 never recertified, 2 were US based and 9 from abroad, and only 8 of those people were documented as actively enrolled in MOC. And I say this because the American Board of Anesthesiology delineates all this stuff on their webpage as a means to cause you fear, so that if you're not compliant as all hospital-based anesthesiologists, you're put at risk in that regard. This is an article which appeared in the Journal of Community Hospital Internal Medicines back in 2012, and it shows maintenance of certification participation in internal medicine, the home of MOC. And if you look down, certified in general medicine, they had a total of 161 individuals in this study, of which recertified in general medicine, only 9%. And this is again from 2012, long after MOC was a reality. Certified in the subspecialty, only 25%. So even the people pushing, members of the ABIM, pushing this down our throats, were not compliant. And that's why Dr. Barron was now made the CEO of the ABIM, because he was a good guy. He had always been compliant every 10 years, and they had to get rid of the old crew because of this embarrassing reality. This is the old crew. Christine Castle, she used to be the CEO before Barron, and it was a great thing. She went to the Quality Forum, and Barron came from the Quality Forum to the ABIM. Christine Castle was making over $800,000 a year running this show. Her husband always got to fly with her, all expenses paid whenever she went somewhere, and she was also taking down over $500,000 from other associated healthcare organizations, which we will come to see constituted severe conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest are rampant in this corporation, this corporate entity. And this is Dr. Chaudhry, who is the head of the FSMB. He is a DEO. He certified once in 1996 and never again. He was listed last year at 2013 as not board certified. And funny things that came out to be that the FSMB was trying to create a program to certify him as a physician as an administrator. So these things will make special exception for their members and create programs to do these things. Lois Margaret Nora came in just about a year ago as the CEO of the ABMS, and we can see that she certified in 1987 and never recertified in anything the whole time. Well, that's because she's a JD. Lawyers know how to get around stuff. And that's why she was hired, was because she was a JD, and they need someone to do the legal conniptions that are necessary to make this run. In reality, this is an older slide. As of 1/13/2013, she never recertified. But as of April of this past year, she finally got around to doing it. Maybe they had a special test for her, I don't know. Now, the ethics issues with the ABMS, this is a letter from the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary to Christine Castle about a scam which reached $40 million settlement because CareFusion, one of the guys on the Quality Forum, used it to propagate his specific particular interests. And so Christine Castle was addressed in this. But the reality was, she was making, as president and CEO of the National Quality Forum at the time, she was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional outside compensation, which was deemed to be a conflict of interest. She was paid $235,000 as director for Premier Incorporated, an advisory corporation, and $200,000 for Kaiser Permanente. And so instead of resigning, she decided to step back from these two high-paying positions because, well, you got to go where the money is. $800,000 is still better than that. And she could only have one of the three numbers, so she took her pick. But these people, they don't do what they say. The other reality with Christine Castle, she did recertify in geriatrics, but for the last 30 years, the ABIM has said geriatrics is one of the specialties where you have to do the primary to maintain the secondary. She never did that either. So these are people, they talk out of both sides of their face because they can. Now, exposing fraud. In Ohio, I got involved with this whole problem back in 2011 because the Federation was coming to Ohio to introduce maintenance of licensure as the first state. And I and one colleague from the AAPS, Dr. Christman, got together and went to the Ohio State Medical Association. He put the proposal up, and I came as the fact man. If you want to fight these entities, you want to go to changeboardresearch.com. There's all the information there, and when you fight it in your state, you want to keep tabs on anything that's pertinent to your argument and put it on your computer and save it in a file so you can reference it back. And so Dr. Christman, he proposed the resolution, I was the fact man, and by having two people, that gave you twice the time at the microphone to explain stuff. And I've been talking now for 25 minutes, and I've only scratched the surface, okay? And so in presenting a resolution, you have to have at least two people, if not three, so that you don't seem to be the only person at the microphone fighting against the world, and the minions will follow you because nobody wants this. Dr. Talmadge, he was the chairman of the board of the FSMB, and on the state medical board, the only physician pushing for this MOL, writing letters, trying to get it pushed through, and the state medical societies got together, wrote a letter, and said, and opposed it, and it was defeated. And the next day, the executive director of the state medical board was gone, and Dr. Talmadge subsequently, based on an ethics committee investigation, which I initiated, go to your government, tell them, hey, there's bad things going on. They are by law obliged to research this. Although he was earning $60,000 from the FSMB while selling that program at the state medical board for the FSMB, the ethics committee found that to be not a problem. But the fact that he took $5,000 in travel and dues money to travel to Texas to the FSMB and got paid simultaneous from the FSMB for the same tickets, he was guilty of Class 5 felony. And then when that became clear, he is no longer at the board as well. People who do illegal things can get caught, but you got to put the pedal to the metal and go after the facts. Now, journal ethics, I want you to read this. Do professional developmental programs for maintenance of certification affect quality of patient care? It's a nice question. Of course, the answer, because it's written in the Journal of the American Board of Family Medicine, sponsored by the American Academy of Family Physicians and the American Board of Family Medicine, with conflict of interest, none declared, I mean, give me a break. It's in their journal, written by their people, promoting their products, and there's no conflict of interest? Give me a break. That's the kind of ethics you're dealing with. And these are journal articles. And this is the Federation of State Medical Boards Journal of Medical Regulation. The boards and the FSMB are by definition physician adverse organizations. They don't do anything for physicians. They make us pay, they make us jump, they make us look bad, and we're going to see how bad. But when they put the articles on the table, like the drug reps, you're only going to see the one that's good for penicillin. And they're their own. Not only is it bad enough, the ABIM, this is from their website, has published a bonus payment program template for you to send to your ex-insurance company for them to fill in their plan names so they can send it to all your doctors of the insurance program and say, either you do MOC or we're not going to be part of our program. So the leverage, the extortion is on. This is their product. And their job is to create fear on the basis of extortion. And I will not stand for extortion personally, and none of us should. This is a woman who was caught up in 2010. A number of doctors, 130 doctors, who were taking the gastroenterology boards were petitioned by a company which gave board review courses to say, remember any of your questions, send them in to us, we'll pay you $50 per question if you can remember them. Well, they did that. Every test I've ever taken in high school, grade school, college, the next day everybody talked about the answers, but because you sent it into this company, you were violating the copyright laws. Odd thing about a board test, if it's copyrighted, I've never seen it in print. I'd like to see it in print, but you never will. They took this woman to the courts and they sued her, and she had to pay $91,000. 139 physicians had their certification revoked. And when you deal with the boards, the reality is when you sign that contract, you look at it, it gives them all the rights and you no rights. They are the final judge and jury on anything they decide relevant your board certification. And the obstetricians, you may have seen, they wanted to say unless you did 95% healthcare for women, you couldn't be board certified. Well, that went around and around, and the OBGYN got up in arms because someone in a rural community like you may have to see a few men just to make ends meet, and that didn't fly. And the reality is because the state organizations are pushing back on MOC. When that came up, they backed off, and now all the boards are backing off. You'll see questionnaires going out. How can we improve MOC? Never should we dump it, but how can we improve it? And they're trying to do this to create a facade of improvement and satisfaction in the real world. Now, the real headbanger, who doesn't know who the Choosing Wisely is? Does everyone know what that is? From the ABIM, the top 5 things we should not do in medicine to save money in healthcare. We used to get yearly physicals. They're not cost effective. We used to get PSAs. They're not cost. We used to do breast exams or pap smears. Not cost effective. So the key of the Choosing Wisely, and Christine Castle said, if we could get rid of 5 things in every specialty that are not, cost effective, we could pay for Obamacare. Boy, I laughed myself to sleep that day. But at any rate, that's what the Choosing Wisely program is. But when I scratch my head and I think, MOC, recertification, I could not think of a more useless test or a more appropriate test to not do. Bayes' theorem we all learned in med school, all testing is good, wrong. You want to take something and apply a test that has a reasonable chance of finding a disease without finding 500 people who don't have it and brand them as being diseased. False positive, false negative ratios. Sensitivity and specificity. But MOC failure rates are as high as 33% in 2010 and 2011 in family practice. Primary care docs out there working every day, doing a good job, but failing the test, 33% of them are failing. And those are false positives, I would say. But how many people are out there who are truly incompetent? I reviewed the State Medical Board of Ohio and the State Medical Board of West Virginia, and no medical board even lists incompetency as a box on their forms to be filled out because it's under 0.03% with a liberal interpretation. So it doesn't come up as a problem. The reasons people get brought up for the State Medical Board is primarily drug or alcohol abuse, pain pill prescriptions or legal violations of the law or sleeping with their patients, but not because they're incompetent. And people who do this are all very smart. If you're practicing medicine when you're drunk, you got to have a good reserve there. Okay, so these are the ABM test results of spring of 2014. Of the 3,400 who took it, 65% passed. 1/3 failed. A test with a false positive of 33% is a very shoddy test. There's something wrong with the test. And of those, 8,400 were first-time recertification. Their pass rate was only 80%. And those are the best ones. They just came out of residency. They learned all the guidelines. That's all they know. They believe it. Now, as an old man, I've seen so many things come and go that I can say, my first boss said, Paul, don't be the first one to jump on the bandwagon, but don't be the last one either. And that's where we are. We see stuff come down the pike from all these, take the statins, the new statin guidelines. They were written by researchers on statins supported by the statin drug companies, and they think statins should be in the drinking water. Well, that's a little, I think, over the top, conflict of interest, but we don't see that. And probably only 10% of what we do in medicine is truly outcome-based. There's nothing outcome-based about the boards. And family practice is no different. Recertification, 75% pass rate. Initial certification, 67% pass rate. How can a test be so valid when it's finding good doctors gone wrong and they don't stop practicing, so it doesn't even do anything? It's a total waste of healthcare dollars. Getting back to let's see if it's true or not. The top one is an article from the Mayo Clinic. They looked at 363 articles from 1 year of the New England Journal of Medicine. That's the glory internal medicine journal you can ever find. And they found that 38%, of the 363 articles testing standard of care, 40% reversed that practice, the practice of what it was, whereas 38% reaffirmed it. So what's true, I'd always say ACLS. I've seen toilet plunger ACLS, thumper ACLS. How many have actually done mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on a patient? I actually did. I'm that old. No one would do that now. You had to have a little mask. And now breathing is totally optional. You don't have to do it. And so this is an example of what we are dealing with in terms of reality that the boards can put on their test and hang you up with. Do you really believe the newest guideline, or are we going to catch you as a bad doctor because you don't? Like I say, the guys right out of residency don't know any better, but we're older than that. And this is the letter that was sent to the Ohio State Medical Board, signed by the various societies, anesthesiology, psychiatry, signed by all the presidents, that took MOL down in one fell swoop. It started with the state organization. They asked everyone to sign on. If you can go to the state organization, argue the resolutions in full forum, people sitting there are doctors. They're not stupid by definition. They will see through this. And at the state level, you do not have the influx of academia and financial interests that you will see at national organizations. And now, slowly, even the national organizations are coming along. And this was the resolution: resolved, oppose any efforts by the State Medical Board of Ohio to implement different maintenance of licensure requirements other than those currently in place for physicians in Ohio. And be it further resolved, OSA form a task force to explore alternate methods other than maintenance of certification for physicians to demonstrate ongoing competency in anticipation of any new requirements that come down the road. Break the monopoly. Break the monopoly. And I want to say, Dr. Gallo is a hero. This is an email that came across my table, that she is standing up for the physicians of Missouri as the first person, and she's looking for partners. She needs one. She should find at least 4 here today who will go with her and fight this battle. And if you don't get it through this year, put it in again next year and go prepared this time with 4 people to stand at the microphone and say, not only do we need it in Missouri, but 16 other states and the AMA and the other organizations I'm going to show you now have stood up and said, this is nonsense. It's time for Missouri to come out of the dark ages. So these are the 15 states with formal opposition to MOC, and you'll see that I put Missouri in there because I think it's going to win. Pennsylvania has recently come along with it. This is what the degradation of certification is, bait and switch. These are my 2 certificates, the pertinent statements. the first time in '89 a licensed graduate of medicine, having complied with all the requirements of the board, is qualified to serve as a consultant in anesthesiology. Attainment of consultant status. Now in 2005, I was awarded maintenance of certification, okay, in the specialty of anesthesiology from August 1st to December 31st. And it doesn't stop there. This is from a colleague in dermatology. You can look at this is from 2014, a brand new diploma, and it was commencing on January 1st, 2014. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see this, that it's valid contingent upon participation in and completion of maintenance of certification every freaking year. What does that mean? If you don't get your pass stamped, you may become decertified on some unexpected certain day where the next test might be 6 months out. And if your hospital says, if the hospital bylaws say you have to be board certified, and now suddenly from one day to the next you're not board certified to treat patients in this institution, what happens to your patients? So not only do you need to go to the state societies, you need to go to your hospital boards, your hospital medical executive committee, and change the language from being board certified to having become board certified. Again, certified is past tense, so that you can protect yourself from this kind of thing, and also to fight through the state legislature and the state society against insurance companies imposing these laws on you. And this is directly from the ABMS. About 2 years ago, a New England Journal of Medicine article came out poo-pooing Mock a little bit, and they felt compelled to put out a statement. And this is one of the statements that was put on their document, MOC Myths and Facts. Fact, ABMS recognizes that regardless of the profession, whether it is healthcare, law enforcement, education, or police, or public accountants, or whatever it is, crane operators, there is no certification that guarantees performance or positive outcomes. Again, only thing that counts is the good housekeeping seal of approval. This is all crap, and they admitted it. And why did they admit it? Because back in 2002 in Academic Medicine, this article is from Sharp and Lipsky and Hurwitz, are executives of the ABMS. They did this study. They wanted to do, and it says right there, Horowitz is Associate Vice President, Miller is Executive Vice President. It's by the American Board of Medical. They funded this study. They wanted to do a meta-analysis of all available literature on board certification to demonstrate how wonderful and how important it was. Few published studies, only 5% use research methods appropriate for research questions. They print a lot of crap, but it's crap. And more than half support an association. And if your relative risk is 1.1, that supports an association. But what that means is zero, nothing. Because in doing these retrospective studies, the science of retrospective statistics is they are highly influenced by bias. And when you got the vice president and the president doing the bias, there's no shortage of it. And so no systematic review has examined the link. It was between 1966 and 1999. 1,200 papers, selected 237, reduced to 56, and identified only 13 papers that they could put into the study, whereby only one of them was not a retrospective review demonstrating a mere association. So it's crap. Dr. West, he reviewed the regulators recently online, and he went and he looked, the ABMS, they publish also every year the articles supporting MOC on their website. And he went and he looked at these 31 articles and looked at all the doctors. And as you know, the federal government is now publishing the amount of Medicare, Medicaid dollars you earned each year online, and you can look it up. So Dr. West looked it up. All these people in the articles, only 80 of them, 53%, were MDs in the first place. And then looking at them as a point of reference, he said, Dr. West is a cardiologist near Chicago. He took in $163,000 of CMS money. These physicians with an MD, the 53%, the average Medicare payment was $18,000, indicating these people don't really practice medicine. And the median was $0. So if you take the middle of the road, how much did you make? $0. These people do not practice medicine, but they're paid by the ABMS to publish these papers so that they can support their corporate endeavors. This is an interesting document. Anybody wants any of these, I have them on my computer. I'm happy to share with them. In 2010, and I've highlighted in red, but I've blown it up because I knew it would be a problem to read. And this is from my board in 2010. Based on its understanding of the current CMS requirements, and this is the PQRS 2% tax that we are going to see, the American Board of Anesthesiology does not believe that the additional requirements for the MOC bonus will have a sufficient impact on patient care, nor will the reimbursement bonus justify the additional time and resource burden on its diplomates, being the doctors that work. Accordingly, the ABA does not intend to submit an application for CMS approval of an ABA MOC PQRS program in 2011. What that means is, up until 2013, only 9 boards would even be able to help you get the money from Medicare, okay, the 0.5% that they were doling out. And my board was not one of them. Only in 2013 did I have a body that would be able to attest to my compliance for me to get the money or avoid the loss down the road. And this is true for all of us. These boards will be charging you each year for the certificate that you can send into CMS, on top of the probably $5,000 a year it will cost you just to do their programs, and not even to mention the travel money and the locum tenens cross coverage you're going to have to pay to go and do their programs. So losing the 2% is the cheap way out by not complying with MOC. So what to do to organize? States are where the laws are. The national level, we're getting to that through the state organizations. That's certainly worthwhile. Define the truth and expose the lies. Become familiar with these articles that come out. You could follow Dr. West, or you can follow the APS. They publish crap, and I look at it every month. Get on PubMed, put in MOC certification, it comes out, and these articles are truly garbage. And in every instance of your hospital board, go and say attain certification and not be certified in hospital privileges and group memberships, and if you consider hiring or signing a contract. Now, this is an important document. From the Federal Regulations, Chapter 4, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Title 42, ensure that in paragraph 482.12-7, ensure that under no circumstance is the accordance of staff membership or professional privileges in the hospital dependent solely upon certification, fellowship, or membership in a specialty body or society, because they want to fight this conflict of interest in protecting marketplaces, the Federal Trade Commission. This is from your government. This is their document. When you go to the board and want to change it to having attained certification, use the text, they have to deal with it. JCLH will come and get them. The American College of Physicians has put out a letter, and I'm not going to go through it and read it, but this is one society that is strongly in opposition to the ABIM's proposals. However, they're making lots of money off of the MOC, so there is a conflict of interest, which makes them, on the one hand, our friends, but on the other hand, the enemy nonetheless. I've met the enemy. He is us. It's unsure where this will go long term. The American College of Cardiology similarly has stood up and said MOC is a problem. Dr. Tierstein at La Jolla with Scripps University, he put online, and I'm going to show it to you, a petition opposing MOC. And he got over 19,000 signatures in a few weeks opposing MOC, and that forced the ABM for the first time to come to the table to talk to people. And this is the petition. That's where you can go on, log on. 19,000 signatures as of noon on the 17th of this month. People signing up to officially oppose MOC. And there's also, you can sign up and say that you will not do MOC. There's already 6,000 signatures. And you might say, well, it's a petition, what the heck? But numbers matter. And if they have this and they go to the ABM, those numbers are scary for the ABIM, because that means votes to the senator and laws changing in the states, and the states are where they are. And the American Academy of Sleep Medicine has opposed it, and these are the AMA principles from just last week. They came out in the meeting at Dallas. MOC should be based on evidence and designed to identify performance gaps and unmet needs, providing direction and guidance for improvement in physician performance and delivery of care. The process should be evaluated periodically to see if it's doing that, and it should be used as a tool for continuous improvement. However, the program should not be a mandated requirement for licensure, credentialing, payment, network participation, or employment. This is the AMA, and people kind of quiver when the AMA says something. And the only reason the AMA is saying that is because state societies are standing up and sending their representatives to the national meeting each year. An actively practicing physician should be well represented on specialty boards developing MOOC, and they are not. These are all academicians. So this is in print. And other most important thing is the AAPS is the only national organization going after these honchos, to use a word that's fits the society I'm with today, and filed a lawsuit in court. And you can go to the AAPS website, you can donate, and you can get involved. And if people are adversely affected, individual physicians, if you're pushed off of staff, register with the AAPS, and pretty soon we'll have enough for a class action suit, and maybe we'll be able to take the ABMS down. Now in that article with my name on it, a lot of this is there, the numbers are there. Feel free to take it home, look through it. My email is on there. I think I got about 5 more minutes, so I'm gonna move a little faster. Changes at MOC, the American Board of Dermatology has also spoken out against it. They backed off. They used to have 6 activities required for MOOC. They backed down to 2. So the boards themselves are sending out questionnaires or making changes, as is OBGYN and other societies, because of this pressure. Now is the time to get it and kill it because the pressure is there. And this is from the PA Medical Society. This is the strongest statement I've seen. Board certificates should have a lifetime status. Put it in your resolution. That's the way it was conceived. If you make board certification lifetime again, you take the extortion out, and you can say, we're all lifelong learners, and if the ABMS can give us a program that actually works, we'll be more than happy to buy it, but those honchos aren't doing that. They're extorting us, and extortion is illegal, and I think there's opportunity there. This here from the PA Medical Society is a very important document. I think everyone, as we go down the road, should emulate it if at all possible. And another thing is, what good is board certification? As a member of the ASA, I went to the American Society. We have a closed claim project. All the lawsuits that are filed against anesthesia providers get reviewed, and it goes back about 40 years. And I said to them, from 1990 to 99, look at certified versus non-certified, and tell me what the difference is. And they gave me one set of numbers. There wasn't a difference, okay? That whether you were board certified or non-board certified, the incidence of severity, death, permanent injury was exactly the same, one set of numbers. So what does it matter? Well, then I said, well, if that's no different, what about the claims paid out? The paid out claims for a board certified was $187,000 mean, while non-board certified was less. The ranges are different and wider, and the claims resulting in each group, 47 versus 58% is probably not a significant difference, but the incidence of claims paralleled the 25 to 75% ratio of non-certified to certified anesthesiologists. So what does certification do? It makes you a target when you have a malpractice suit, and that's essentially all it does. I've talked about the national societies. This is operating revenue from the ABA. As nonprofit corporations, they have to divulge corporate information to you, and my society did that. And if you look at it, the dues are 19 million, meetings are 4, publications 3, and exhibits. Educational products and other revenues is 7 million for the American Society of Anesthesiologists. And if you look at non-dues operating revenue, you'll see the green getting bigger. Well, that's your MOOC money being put to good use. $12 million in 2012, going up rapidly under these MOOC programs. The national societies are hiring CEOs to run the corporations, and they see the money and they love it. And that's the only way to put it. And the operating revenue around 28, when they realized that this program needed to come into being, that's when being in the red went to being in the blue. And finally, the other thing that this is doing, it's pricing doctors out of the healthcare market. Because healthcare is so expensive, we got to make it cheaper. We got to make nurse practitioners, we got to put the PAs out there, we got to have the janitor providing healthcare here next week so that everyone can get the healthcare that we can afford. And this green map shows nurse anesthetists given free license to practice medicine without a medical license. You can go to California or North Dakota and get anesthesia from a nurse or a doctor. The pay is the same. And so we've given them free license to practice medicine. Why did this certification come into being? Because there were stories of guys coming in who never went to medical school and were practicing medicine. Well, hell, we're handing out free license to non-physicians to practice medicine. And if we don't take control, the profession probably will die. And again, the reasons for board action in Ohio: impairment, criminal actions, or actions coming in from out of state regarding activities in other states where you're dual license. Nowhere is incompetency even rated on this? And so the key to fighting maintenance certification is to not only just say no, look at these websites, join these groups, but also go to your state organizations and fight. Fight now. People will, if you have 2-3 people at the microphone, they will follow you. And Dr. Gallo is your local hero. Thank you.